Hare Krishna. My name is Bhaktimarg Swami, which means path of devotion, and it was name given to me by Srila Prabhupada in 1973. My way of coming to Krishna consciousness is kind of interesting, and I find it interesting that I'm asked to speak on this. It was just a week ago that I had been with a family driving on a major highway in Canada, and for some reason or another we were detoured. The whole highway was 4 lanes, 2 lanes, two that we needed to go on a westerly bound direction was blockaded, and we had to do an incredible detour, so many kilometers. We were not sure why it was like that. We thought, okay, construction perhaps, or maybe it's due to some accident. So anyways, the day passed on, and then later in the evening, it was my birthday. And we had a little family reunion. And news came to us, oh, did you hear about the accident? There was a big accident on the 401 highway. And I said, yeah, I knew there was some problem on the road. And then he said, well, the problem was there was a semi-trailer, a big truck that keeled over into the ditch, crashed, and then that was in the nighttime. And so the next motorist, a vehicle, a van with 5 people in it, stopped. The one person pulled out of the van, and he put some of those flares, those kind of like flames that give a warning. There's a problem. It's in the nighttime, so he happened to have them with him, and he put them out on the highway too to warn oncoming traffic. So while he was placing that there, another semi-trailer came and killed the fellow. So the person's name was Robert McGuigan, and he was a personal friend of mine. And it was he and I and my brother who first met devotees in a kind of a meaningful way on the west coast of Canada in Victoria, BC. And we were approached by 3 very tall, shaven-headed fellows who were trying to promote their magazine, Back to Godhead magazine. I was a little reluctant. I kind of walked fast so I could evade the 3 fellows. But it was my friend Robert McGuigan who actually took the magazine, Back to Godhead magazine, and maybe as a way to get rid of the 3 devotees, Hare Krishna monks. Gave him a quarter, which is what Back to Godhead magazines were at the time. And, they were on their way. And we were on our way. I then took the magazine, and I read it on the ferry going back to the mainland. And I was really impressed with the magazine. That was my first real connection in a sort of deep way with Krishna consciousness. And it was just unfortunate that the person who gave me my first publication just recently passed away in a sort of a heroic way, I guess you could say. All along, while I was going through a spiritual quest in my life, we're talking about maybe the last year of my secondary school education, I was really wondering about my purpose in this world, and I had questions and doubts about my own brand of spirituality that I was raised in as a Catholic. And at that time, the Beatles, the popular 4-man band, was really, influential in the world. And they wrote incredible lyrics. They were great songwriters, and their musical arrangements were phenomenal, just phenomenal. And they're still honored and praised to this very day. Beautiful music, generally happy music, and music you could dance to, and lyrics that you could hear. So I was looking at what some of the Beatles were saying in their lyrics, and saying that there's a spiritual edge to what they're doing here, and especially in the case of George Harrison. So I would attribute some of their work to my coming to Krishna consciousness. It sort of added to the appetite I had for spirituality. And so after reading that magazine and also having a few other encounters with Krishna conscious devotees, I was a fine arts student, and I met devotees in the college where I was going to school, and they kind of just helped themselves to the lounge and just start talking to people. And I met a group of fellows that evening that they had come to the college. They were on the street and they were chanting, and one of them was Bhaktimarg Swami. Another one was Vishwakarma, Satyajit, Drupada, and Dustadura, all 5 Canadian devotees, quite serious about being in their mission. And I just had a chat with them. This was near Christmas time in '72. And I happen to have a $5 bill, which is, on me. They were trying to promote their Bhagavad Gita, which I then gave to them, the donation. And then I asked them where they were staying at night. Well, we've been staying. We're being accommodated in the basement of a church, but we're not sure if we have that place tonight. I said, well, why don't you stay with me? I said. So they stayed with me, and those devotees were very intriguing to me. They were very serious about their involvement in this monastic life. And I remember Satyajit, he had hot milk and lots of sugar in it. And the other members were kind of, laughing about him a little bit. I caught that they were a little jovial, and they were very normal kind of people, because Satyajit was kind of a little bit intoxicated on all the sugar, demonstrated by his behavior. That evening, I could not sleep. The devotees stayed in my room. They were so, let's say, their very presence was shaking up my whole life, to the point where I didn't sleep a wink. And so then it was time to get up, and indeed they get up early in the morning. They were talking to me about the virtues of vegetarianism. I never liked eating meat. I was raised on a farm. We'd see our animals. They would be born, and we'd give them names. They were like pets to us. And then you'd see them in a different manifestation on the dinner table. So it was always kind of disgusting to me. And so these were the people, these devotees, who told me it's a good idea to be a vegetarian, because it's backed up by an ancient culture from India. People have been vegetarian for a long time. And at that time, the West was just looking at the East in the most serious way, for the first time, I'd say. And Mark Twain said something about how the East is the East and the West and the West, and they'll never really come together, but he was wrong. People were starting to look at what the Eastern values were. And from that moment on, I became a vegetarian, just because someone was there to promote it. But so anyway, there was incredible impact on me with that first visit. And my roommate, who was absent at the time, had a marijuana plant in the window. And the devotees were talking about, oh, that should be a tulsi plant. I didn't know what they were talking about. They were talking about doing sadhana. And I said, why should I do anything sad? And, but we went through a program of chanting on the beads. I was observing what they were doing, and I could relate to it. It was like a rosary, like in the Catholic tradition. Only there's in the Catholic tradition, they have 54 beads, and we have 108, so you double what they have. And that's what we've got. And so we had a nice vegetarian meal, and Bhaktimarg Swami, who was known as a Yogyapati at the time, read to me a whole chapter from the Krishna book the gopis attracted by the flute of Krishna. And I thought, this is very poetical. This author has written. The devotees showed me a picture of Prabhupada, where he had a big smile, and his features are very pronounced. His the hair coming out of the ears and everything like that, which is happens in old age. And they said something very profound to me. They said that we can't wait till we're of his age. And that really made me think. I said, who wants to be an old man? And then they kind of clarified it. They said, well, he's a very advanced person, and spiritually. And we love to come to that platform. So the devotees were more or less implying that it takes some years for your Krishna consciousness, your spiritual consciousness to develop. And I just thought that was really significant, because I never heard anybody talk about old age in such a glorious way. The common lingo was, hey, my old man, meaning my dad, and in a sort of a disrespectful way. That was a common kind of, let's say, terminology at the time. We're talking about late 60s, early 70s. So I started reading the books, and I started chanting, on a regular basis. And I started to do a lot of walking. Instead of taking a bus, I started to walk to the campus for my courses, and I seemed to have time to myself. I was projecting Krishna, who I understood God now to me is blue. He's a blue boy, and he's walking with me in the snow. I was imagining him walking in the snow with me, and I knew that he was a transcendental being, so I knew that the snow wasn't cold on his feet, so I didn't have to worry about that. I just knew that I could understand from my reading that he was my companion. And I'd spend sometimes, an hour or so just flipping open the page from the Gita, where you have that famous painting of Krishna, Gopal Krishna, with the deer and the calf, and kind of just meditating in front of that picture. So my life was changing. It was stirring up. And 3 months after I met those devotees, I made a final decision. When I was walking one day, and no one was picking me up, I was hitchhiking, and I more or less had the attitude, to hell with all of you motorists who don't care to help a starving artist student. I'm just going to walk. So I walked about 9 miles that day, and I had all the time to think about what I should be doing with my life. And I decided then and there that I would end my course. I had 1 month left to go, and I'm going to go to the ashram in Toronto, and I'm going to just go for the weekend and try it out. And so I did. I met Jagadish and other senior devotees, and I really liked the lifestyle, the peer atmosphere, let's say the family atmosphere was so enticing. I just decided that this is what I wanted to do. So I told the leader of the ashram, Jagadish, this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to come and join. Would that be okay? And he said, yes, it's all right. So then I went to tell my family. It was a long train ride. And it took my parents a little by surprise, but my siblings, I'm the oldest out of 6 of us, 3 boys, 3 girls, and they always respected my decisions. So they thought, hey, John was my name. He's really doing something far out once again, something radical. So I did. I joined the temple, and I felt like I had been there before, and in some previous existence, everything, all the smells, the lifestyle, the flatbread, the chapatis, the spices, everything was nice, but the clothes weren't very attractive to me. The clothes the devotees wore, I thought they were a little tacky looking. But everything else was quite wonderful. And you're talking about intelligent, talented people who were in my midst, and it was really nice being in their company. That's kind of like what I was looking for. An atmosphere of community, sense of community, family, love, and philosophy was also there and deeper than anything, and richer than anything else I'd ever experienced. But I think what really won me over was the company, the good association. So that's a little bit about how I got involved. And eventually, Tulsi Devi took on meaning for me, and chanting while walking took on a lot of meaning. And eventually I started to enjoy walking and chanting at the same time, seeing it almost like a soup and sandwich, horse and carriage, love and marriage. It was kind of like walking and chanting they go together real well. So that's that. Do you have anything else?